Welcome, everybody, to another Wednesday webinar with Go Imagine. I want to thank you all for being with us tonight, or if you're watching the recording, I want to thank you for watching this virtually. Tonight is a very special night. As you know, we often have webinars here around what Go Imagine is doing in terms of our product updates, in terms of our strategy with business, in terms of helping our makers sell. But tonight's a special night because it's not about Go Imagine. Tonight is about the charities that we're looking to serve and the charities we're donating to. Everybody already knows that our mission at Go Imagine is to donate 100% profits to charity. As much as we are a maker community focusing on helping makers sell their handmade goods, the real end goal is to help charities throughout the United States to donate to them and help them serve the children that need to be served. And all of you that are a maker on Go Imagine, all of you that are a buyer on Go Imagine, you are part of this community and you're a part of this mission to help children in need throughout the United States. Now, with that said, when you tell people that you donate money to charity, the natural question, the right question to have is, what charity? What charity do you donate to? That's a very important question. And that's why we always want to be upfront and honest with the charities we're partnering with and the charities we're donating to. So tonight we have a very special guest, one of our most recent charity partners we've partnered with. We've donated a couple times to and plan on donating more to over time. And I want to introduce you now. Let me bring them in to Relief Nursery. Hello, we have with us Kelly Sutherland and Jennifer Solomon from Relief Nursery. For everybody, if you want to check them out online, you can check them out at reliefnursery.org. Hey, what's up, Kelly, Jennifer? How are you?
Hi, John. Hi, John. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's really been a delight and a pleasure to get to know you and to learn more about Go Imagine and to just see the impact that you're having in the communities.
We're very excited to be here.
I appreciate that. You know, it's we were still a new company. I think we have a worthy mission, but it's all for the purpose of supporting charities like you who are doing the real work. So for all of our makers who are already chatting in here, and for anybody who's watching on our on our Facebook page, how about I just start with the basics? Could you tell me a little bit about, you know, who Relief Nursery is, where you came from, what your basic mission is? Can you just tell everyone in your words what it is you folks do?
I sure can. I'll take that one. So Relief Nursery is a child abuse and neglect prevention organization, and our focus is really on the social and emotional development of the children and supporting parents in parenting education and learning parenting skills. We also have drug and alcohol recovery support, mental health programs, early childhood special education programs. And what's really interesting about Relief Nursery is it started in 1976, so we've been at this for a solid 45 years. We can talk about our expansion across the state later, but it began with a group of women. 2 or 3 were involved in the junior league. And then others were employed at Department of Human Services or Child Protective Services. And they started thinking and talking and saying, why is it that there are only services available to the children and to the families and their involvement after the child has been victimized? And so they had this idea that we need to be preventing instances of child abuse and neglect and focus before a victimization or a problem occurs. And so they borrowed space in churches, 4 different churches around Eugene, and offered a very small respite program, which is the parent, if feeling stress or in crisis, could bring the child, drop the child off, and take an hour or 2 to do what they needed to do or to gather themselves or whatever the situation was. And then around that and from that grew the Relief Nursery model. And it built on trying to create programs and offer support that parents have expressed that they needed. Rather than saying, here's our program, come and be part of our program, it is, what do you need and how can we help you? And a capital campaign ensued, a building was built, and then programs developed, again, around the stated need and expressed need of these families, really these families in crisis. And we continue to serve the most vulnerable children and families in our community.
Okay, that's wonderful. So if I'm hearing you right, based on what you said about, you know, when intervention happens, it would be in my mind, you know, rather than just being a firefighter waiting for the fire to start and put out the fire, you're getting ahead of it to prevent the fire from happening in the first place.
That's correct, and we do both. I mean, we have families that arrive in crisis right now, and we can immediately help them. We can refer them for intimate partner violence services. We can provide food. We can provide clothing, basic needs. Make sure they get in to have mental health services or enroll them in our programs, our outreach programs, home visiting. We do help immediately and right away, but our overall overarching goal is to engage these families. I mean, our parents love their children and they want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Many of them do not have the skills. They didn't learn them. They maybe grew up in an environment where they were neglected or abused, or they were in a home where there was violence or substance abuse, and they want to do the right thing, and they are self-referring. All of our families, for the vast majority of our programs, show up and say, I would like help. We need some help. And then it's off to the races. We engage the children in our therapeutic early childhood program. The parents have a number of different programs they can participate in. And we're very successful, again, because we're providing services that they've asked us for and that they've expressed that they need.
Which, you have to commend anybody who goes to somebody else for help, yes. Right? I mean, the first step to any sort of, I guess, recovery, or not even recovery, but any first step to getting better as a person is looking for help, right? And I think that's true across the board, not just in your situation, but I think humans in general need to learn to ask for help more.
Well, that's very true. And you know what, John, that many of the families that we are helping and serving, they've gotten themselves, deeper into trouble by asking for help. And so we're there's no stigma in being served here. We're non-judgmental. We support families through crisis. And if something happens in the home, we're mandatory reporters. We help the process of making that report, supporting the family while it's going on. But asking for help sometimes for our families doesn't turn out very well for them. And certainly it doesn't turn out well for the child, because the minute the child enters into the child welfare system and into foster care, they take a completely different trajectory in life.
So can I, the work you folks do is incredible. And it's also a sensitive subject. It can be hard to talk about because, I'm a father of 4 children. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and twin 3-year-olds. So
you don't look old enough to have children that old.
I've been through my own war. But, thinking about what some of these children go through can be difficult. But if we could speak in lay terms, you talk about domestic violence, domestic abuse. Is this sometimes, because you also said sometimes they put themselves in harm's way asking for help. So not to stereotype here, but as a situation where maybe a mother or wife is looking for help from their significant other who might be putting them in harm's way? Or is it the person oftentimes that is unsure of themselves, like they're the harm and they're coming to you? You see what I'm saying? Is it some people coming to you for refuge from the problem at home? Or sometimes it's the person coming to you that is the problem saying, I need help?
It's really both. And what I meant really before, which is that the system sometimes doesn't really support a positive outcome. So in other words, we are not a state, fully funded state program. We're not the Department of Human Services. Now we're mandatory reporters, and we align ourselves with the values of protecting children and strengthening families. But sometimes the system isn't the best outcome, isn't the best place for a family. We know we have a lot of success working with children and families, and the moment they're in crisis, and then helping them chart a different path and a different course for their family. So that's really what I meant. But yes, we do have parents that come and say, well, I'm afraid I'm going to harm my child. And we can help. And we do have parents come and say, I'm in a situation where there's violence in my home and I'm afraid. And what I can tell you about that is we have a very specialized classroom where we work with children that have even more heightened social and emotional challenges than our other children. Almost all of them have some developmental delays at being in these environments. But the one consistent issue that creates a very traumatic situation and a cascading problem for these children is violence in their home.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. I mean, if I'm guessing early intervention is best for you to be involved earlier to actually get them through it.
Yes.
Right. So over the course of time, you obviously have different programs that you've been running, and those have different purposes. Can you tell me about some of these programs? In fact, I might even bring up your website here to show a little bit of it. But can we talk a little bit about the various programs that you do run?
Sure. I'll let Jennifer take one here.
All right.
I will start out with the home visiting and parent education program. Home visiting is a really important component and a service that we offer for our families. It's an opportunity for us to be in the home with the parents and help them role model for them in their home how to, get down on the floor and play with your kids. We bring books when we come to our home visiting meetings. We bring food if they need it. We bring diapers if they need it. Whatever they need, we are there to serve. And it's also just another way for us to establish a personal connection with the parents and establish the trust. That's one of the hallmarks of Relief Nursery, is that our staff works so hard to establish a very strong trust relationship, and that has many benefits. And so the home visiting component happens in every program, and it's really important and very successful, very beneficial.
Yeah. And so are these volunteers that you have going to homes, or are these actual employees?
Employees.
Wow. Okay. Okay. I mean, that's incredible.
And the other part of that I wanted to mention was our parent education program. That we offer that all year round. We offer it in English and in Spanish, and that has been very successful. We've had a we revamped the curriculum a number of years ago, and it's just really working really well. We have a great team of educators that are teaching that class. And it's also a place where the parents can come and be with other parents that are in similar situations, so they don't have to feel so isolated. We also, one of the things about our parenting education program is that the parents can bring their children. So everybody gets a meal, everybody gets transportation if they need it, and the kids are in a safe place. The parents don't have to worry about finding a babysitter. And then we get them home safely. They all get to take books home. So we try to work really hard to eliminate any barrier that would prevent a family from participating in the programs that we offer.
Right. And I think trust has to be one of those first things, because they're in a very vulnerable position when you get involved. And so really earning their trust and it making them feel, comfortable with what you're doing. I think that's powerful. And growing that community, I can speak on my end. Growing a community is the most powerful thing you can do. So connecting them with each other and letting them realize they're not alone and that others are suffering or need help as well. Yeah, of course, that's a fantastic thing you're doing. And so the home services, before we even had this call, I didn't realize you were actually doing that. So you're going out to the homes. And now obviously
that happens in addition to so it's part of every program. So we have, building on our roots, which is respite, we have an outreach program where parents come and they can drop the children for a certain number of hours a day. And then the home visiting component of that is that we're connecting with the parent and the child at their home. And then typically those children are then enrolled into our therapeutic early childhood program. And in that program, the teacher is also the home visitor. So we have morning class sessions, and then in the afternoon, the teachers go to the homes and visit with the parents. And so sometimes we'll have a special parenting education person go along on a visit if we know there's a particular challenge in the home. And so, one family could be associated, or one child and parent could be in 3 or 4 different programs. Maybe they have a mental health counselor, and sometimes they'll do home visiting as well. So as Jennifer said, it's really a hallmark of all of our core programs is to have a home visiting component to it.
Great. And then this is all free to the people coming for help. There's no charge. There's no, it's all paid for through your funding.
Yes,
that's correct.
Right. I'm a huge, you mentioned mental health, and I'm a huge fan of any sort of mental health therapy. I think everybody should take it, quite honest. I mean, and there's a stigma around that. You tell someone you see a therapist and there can be stigma, but the reality is I think everybody at some point in their life needs somebody to talk to and work through whatever they're going on.
Just today, this is training week here at Relief Nursery, and just today we had a 2-hour workshop about mental health and our own, but also what it looks like, how it manifests in the families, and how we can help them. So It's very powerful. Yeah.
And you say your own mental health, and I can imagine that you and your employees are also in you're doing a tough job. You're seeing a lot of emotional things that you have to, internalize or control yourselves, because you can't help everybody. I know, for me, to be quite honest, I mean, I'm running a website that sells handmade goods. I am no way in a situation like you, where you're dealing with the people day after day. And I know that could be a very difficult thing, to go home at night knowing there's a child in trouble. Right. I don't even know if I could do it. So I commend you on that. So a lot of this is the outreach and the going out, but you have your in-house programs as well. Do you have a building? Is it a building you have, or multiple buildings? Tell me about your setup and what you do internally in-house.
So we have two buildings, one in Eugene and one in Springfield, and basically they have mirrored services. So in each building, we have therapeutic early childhood program classrooms, we have respite classrooms, and we have large resource rooms where we do parenting education on site, large playgrounds, big kitchens. We can have family fun and food night once a month, where we invite parents and their children from all of our programs. They come in, they have a meal, then there's some type of special literacy piece to that. And what's interesting about our buildings is we fundraised within our community to pay for the construction of both of our buildings, and they're fully owned. We don't lease the buildings. When we first started building our building in early 90s in Eugene, I wasn't with the organization at the time. They did a community analysis survey, and the community wasn't really familiar with Relief Nursery, and they suggested that perhaps the nursery might not be successful in their campaign, and the nursery put that in a drawer, closed it up, and said, we're going to raise money to build this building because we have to do it for the children. And true to our roots, it was a grassroots campaign, and that's really how we've sustained ourselves. The community, both the Eugene and Springfield community and all of Lane County, and even the larger now community with organizations like yourself and these types of collaborations, are supporting our efforts. And those are our roots. We're a grassroots organization and have drawn the community into drawn that resource into our work.
And so many of those original donors and those original volunteers from 45 years ago are still with us. They still volunteer. They still come to our events. They still donate. And so I just think that speaks volumes to the commitment that people have to Relief Nursery and the children and families in our community.
Yeah, and the work you're doing, because people see the work and they want to see more of it, right? I mean, they're supporting it because they see the results of it, which is fantastic. Now, I'm going to ask a very silly, stupid question here.
There's no question.
Can you explain to me therapeutic early childhood program? Like what does that mean? So I think therapy, I think, Tommy, are we doing, what is it, Rorschach tests with kids? Like what is it you do with the children that's like kind of that therapeutic side of early childhood? And this is 5 years and below, right? So this is 0 to 5 years old.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the focus in the therapeutic early childhood program, we have no more than usually only 8 children in a classroom. We can go up to 10 with 3 adults. So the adult-child ratio is a very important part of that, and that allows if a child needs one-on-one attention. The focus, there really isn't a curriculum beyond sort of exploration of social and emotional issues. It's not they're not learning to read and write necessarily. Right. Many of the children that we meet, given their life prior to engaging at the nursery, they have some speech delays, they have some emotional outbursts, they are not skilled or really they're not communicating well. So they may have very few words. They may not like to separate from a parent. They may not understand how to interact with another child. And so the focus in the therapeutic early childhood program is on their social and emotional development and their ability to, be happy in an environment like that. There's a lot of play, a lot of sensory play. Right. As much outdoor play as possible. There's a meal. They have a breakfast when they come in. They get a snack, and then they have lunch before they leave. I would say across the board, all of our families are dealing with some type of food insecurity, and the children are hungry. And so it's really this adult-child ratio where we have two full teachers in each classroom and then a volunteer, a minimum of 1 volunteer. In some classes where we may have children that have a few more challenges and they need a little bit extra attention, we'll have another volunteer or 2 in the classroom. And then we may have our special education educator going in and out of the classrooms, working one-on-one with children. We try not to have those children removed so that we're working with them amongst their peers, so they're not isolated. And then our mental health counselor, same thing. They'll go in and out of the classrooms and work with the children there in the classroom. So there could be a lot of adults in a room with children on any given day. Yeah.
Well, first I'll tell you, I have 4 children. So it sounds like you have a better adult-child ratio than I have.
You're right on the cusp of being therapeutic, John.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there have been many times it's me and 4 kids, and I don't know what the hell's going on. I just call it keep them alive mode. Just keep them going. Throw stuff at them to keep them going. Yeah, no, this is incredible. And now is the main goal, because it's 0 to 5, going into the kindergarten year. So are you really trying to prepare them socially and emotionally, preparing them for going to school, for being, because I know of my own kids, it's hard. The first day of school was yesterday for us, and my kids were nervous, and I can imagine for a 4 or 5-year-old going to kindergarten, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you really preparing them for that stage in life when they start going to school?
Yes. In fact, when they're done here at Relief Nursery, we do have a little graduation ceremony for them, and they get to take away a backpack full of things for kindergarten in the fall. Another thing that we provide for these kids, which I think is really special, is a warm handoff. So we try, and when we can, to have the child's Relief Nursery teacher meet with their future teacher along with the parents.
Wow.
So to just kind of bridge that gap there, so that the new teacher understands where the child has come from and what he's learned, or he or she has learned here, and maybe what some of their challenges are. And so it's a little bit of a warm handoff. And then our teacher can help encourage the child that you're going to do great. We met Mrs. Smith, and she really liked you. And did you see the classroom? And you're going to do a great job. You learned a lot here. So I love that. That just really touched my heart when I learned that we were doing that for these kids.
Another thing we do, which is really interesting, is that a lot of our parents have institutional fears. They're afraid of schools and of state programs and that type of thing. And so we model parent-teacher conferences for our little ones. We invite the parents in, and they have meetings with the teacher, and they learn that process. And many of our children are transported by our buses. It's a very big part of our program is transportation. We try to encourage the parents to be on site as much as possible, even if we're transporting their children. So we do model parent-teacher conferences just to try to break down that institutional fear that so many of our parents have.
Right. And bridging, like you said, bridging that gap.
Yeah.
And so do you reach out to these underserved communities? Is this something where you're doing a reach out to the marginalized communities to let them know you're there for them? Like, what kind of reach out do you do to and I'm guessing, I don't want to say this is the case, but I'm guessing these are also lower income people, or is it mostly low income?
Yeah, it's a requirement that to be low income to be served here.
Okay.
So yes, all of our families are low income. Most are well below the federal poverty level, and our programs are all full, and we have waiting lists. But yes, we do. We continually reach out in the community, and we have spent a lot of time creating programs to serve diverse and equitable in ways. And so we have a Latina La Familia program that we started well over 30 years ago. All of our staff are bilingual, not all of our staff, but we have a bilingual, bicultural staff person in every program. Our receptionists are bilingual, bicultural. And so about half of the families that we serve at any given time may be Spanish speaking. And so that we have to be able to do that to properly serve them. And we've just recently, over the last couple of years, endeavored a Native American outreach project and increased our service to Native American families really tenfold since we started. And we're working on creating curriculum and home visiting curriculum for our Native families. And we have we have a community outreach group that has formed, and have members from most of the Oregon tribes that have come in to our facility and worked with us over the last couple of years to help us do outreach into the Native community.
That is something I did not even know, and I think that is incredible.
It's been a very interesting journey.
Yeah.
In fact,
I imagine, you know, and I think it's wonderful that you have such a diverse organization, because as they say, you know, you want to look like the community you're serving, right? When they come and they have that diversity with you, it's more comfortable.
Yeah, it's a value. It's a value system here for us.
Of course, that's wonderful. So, how many families do you serve? I guess, how would you judge it? A year, a month? Like, how many at a time? How many are you usually serving in a given point?
I'm gonna have to defer to you.
So we serve over 1,000 children and their families every year. And that's in all of our programs. So we have multiple programs, but in our therapeutic early childhood program, in our classrooms, we have about 180 children between the two sites on site. And so one of the things that, I was just telling somebody about this when COVID, I'll never forget that, March of 2020, when this started happening, we had to close the doors and immediately figure out how to get food and support to our families. And 6 weeks later, we opened our doors to children. I mean, that's how long we've had children back on site here. We had a system where we created food box and families could come by, and we were doing, we weren't able to go in the homes, of course, and there was a lot of limited interaction. We started doing digital home visiting, that type of thing, learning very quickly that a lot of our families didn't have the technology they needed. So we wrote grants to try to provide technology to our families so we could communicate with them. We had to up our own game internally to be able to do that. And but very quickly we realized that the isolation and the fear and just sort of the lack of just basic needs was really detrimental. And we got these children back on site within 6 weeks. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was all hands on deck, and everybody. And I was just so amazed at how creative our staff is and how energetic they are, and they would identify a problem and they would just problem solve it. Just like it, like
in the past year for organizations like you must have been so difficult. The other charity partner we have, Horizons for Homeless Children in Boston, I talked to them about it as well. And when we talk to organizations like you about what you went through the past year, trying to serve people that need help but can no longer go to your spot because of government mandates and the virus and all that. I mean, it puts in perspective how well off so many people are, and for us at Go Imagine to want to help those that need it, because it's a very political world right now and all this, but the reality is a lot of people were upset they had to stay home and watch Netflix all day, and there was real people that needed help, and you're the ones on the front lines doing that help, figuring things out for them when they need the support, right? And
what we were seeing was that, punitive parenting practices, when you have a high stress environment where they're isolated, they're in their homes, they can't leave, they don't have access to basic needs, they're hungry. This is when we started seeing an increase in child abuse and neglect incidents. And, one that really was a very early situation that occurred, a mom, she left, she was at home with her children, they were isolated, they were there, and she was feeling a tremendous amount of stress, and she left, she walked out of her home and went down the street and called one of our staff and said, I can't be in there anymore. I'm afraid to be there. I don't know what I will do. I'm under so much stress. And we were able to connect her with someone in her family that could help support her, get somebody there into the home, and then provide some of these things that she needed immediately to help. But, she had two bad choices, that mom, right at the moment. She was either going to stay there in this situation, which was a tinderbox, or she was going to have to leave her children unattended in her home. She was just outside, a house or two away. But it was a crisis, and it was so sad. But we were able to be there. She knew to call us, and we were answering the phone, and we figured out a way to address and the situation where she could safely and comfortably go back into the home and care for her children.
And I mean, that's an incredible story. And I do believe that, this is my personal belief that everybody's good at heart, but people need help.
Yes.
And the people you're helping, even the ones that are doing the abuse, they're not bad people, right? They need to learn. They have a lot of stress. I mean, everyone goes through stress. And when the stress is either financial, if the stress is emotional stress, and then as you mentioned, I think earlier tonight, when you mentioned, how they were raised, right? They don't have the ways to handle it. So I guess my whole point as I think about this is that this isn't a case of these are bad people. It's more of they don't have the tools, or they don't have the education or the experience, the upbringing that some of us were lucky to have when we were children, to learn how to deal with it now. And, without you can imagine the direction it might go. Right.
Yeah.
And where, that's the scary thing. I don't even like talking about it, but you have to, about like the darker side that it can go if there wasn't a relief nursery to help these families through that dark time.
Right, and we know what happens. We know the trajectory when a child enters into the foster care system, that they are disproportionately end up in the juvenile justice and then the criminal justice, and then the cycle continues and repeats itself. And so we know what happens when there isn't, when we're not able to intervene and help families find a different way. But I want to make sure that we properly illustrate what it's like here at the nursery. There is a lot of joy here. These children are happy to be here. Their parents are doing the best they can. There's joy, there's laughter. The kids do parades through the building every once in a while. There's playgrounds. I mean, there's a lot of joy here, and that's really what keeps us going. So yeah, we're dealing with.
Isn't that what it's all about? I mean, isn't that the point is to give these children, and I don't want to use the word normal, but an otherwise normal childhood that they wouldn't get if you weren't there, right?
Yes.
And I've not been to, I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, so I've never been to your site in person. But our other charity partner has a similar setup where they have those nurseries and those preschools, so to speak, from children living in shelters. And for those who have never visited a place like this, those listening, I did a walkthrough. I was given a tour. And, it was at the time where I had a child that, was in daycare, the same age. And I had this preconceived notion that I'd walk in and I would see these underprivileged children, like I was watching a Sally Struthers ad from Africa or whatever it is, right? But I walked through and all of these children looked just like my child.
And they are.
That's exactly it. And that really hit me when I realized that these children are like every other child, except they're going through a traumatic experience my child will hopefully, knock on wood, go through, right? But they deserve the help. They deserve it because there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to get it. And anyway, I don't want to go off on the rails. This is why we started Go Imagine, is to grow our community to help communities like you.
That's amazing.
And one thing you told me when we talked, Jennifer, is that Relief Nursery, your current organization, started in Eugene, Oregon, right? But you have had, for lack of a better term, copycats than others. Copycat sounds bad. I'm sure you want copycats. Like, it's not like they're taking things from you, but there's been some replication. There have been others who have started. Are they also Relief Nurseries, or are they called something else?
Yes, they are called Relief Nurseries, but I call Eugene, where we started, the mothership. Okay. And this is where the curriculum was created, and it was documented, and it's been approved and formalized and copyrighted, I believe. And in the process of that, other communities were learning about what we were doing. And we had a lot of advocates on our behalf in the legislature and throughout the state, and in the the justice system. They saw what we were doing, and they really wanted us to succeed. So other communities started to visit and see what we were doing. They wanted to do what we were doing in their communities. So they can do that. And so in order to be a relief nursery, you need to follow our curriculum, and you need to have a 25% match within your local community for your fundraising. Wow. But you are your own relief nursery. So you can call yourself whatever you want, but you are a relief nursery. There are 31 other, oh, I'm sorry, 41
sites.
sites
All right.
across Oregon implementing the curriculum that was started here in Eugene. And so we're really proud of that.
Well, you should be. I mean, there's no fonder form of flattery than imitation, right? I mean, like
Right.
if people are seeing the success that you've done over the past 40 years and saying, we want to bring that to our community. I mean, there's no better testament of success than seeing that happen, right?
And our colleagues and our peers at the other nurseries, I mean, it started, slowly, but then we've had some exponential growth over the last couple of years. But our legislative allocation has grown from very early in the early 90s from 3 million to over 19 million. Now, again, that's just a portion of each nursery's overall total budget, and each nursery is required by statute and by part of the Relief Nursery model that they have to have the community, at least 25% of any state funding that they raise within their community. And that is in keeping with our roots, being a grassroots organization, and that the community really has to buy in and support the organization. It's the only way that we would succeed. Mm-hmm. So there's each nursery in each community is slightly different, but we all do follow the quality assurance standards and the core of the model, which was created here and owned by our nursery.
Which is incredible. And I want to thank you for taking the time tonight to tell us all about this. As I mentioned earlier, the goal here is for all of our makers and any buyers who are watching this to really understand, the types of organizations we want to give donations to as we continue to grow. And the more we learn about organizations like you, the more we realize that there's a real power behind what we're trying to do. Because
yes.
And you mentioned your replication where, you started to see, other communities wanting to open Relief Nurseries, which I think is incredible. And that must be a dream come true. Because I know for me, our model for e-commerce to turn profits from e-commerce into donations to charity. I hope other e-commerce companies do what we do, right? It's good for the world when others find good models and copy them, right? And take those ideas, run with them, or even make them better, because that's how we all become better as a people, when we all work together.
And that's the stated mission of the Oregon Association of Relief Nurseries, is that any community that wants a relief nursery in Oregon should have one. And that's our overall state association goal, which is that any community that wants or needs a relief nursery should have one. And we work towards that.
And it's only in Oregon right now. It's not gone past that. It's only in the state.
It did briefly into Texas, and we really weren't able to assure the quality of the program and oversee it. We got ahead of ourselves maybe a little bit there, but we did. We have had a contingent from the Ukraine visit, and in collaboration with Whole Community, Whole Children's Services, they came for a month and learned about our programs, and we had a team go over there, and it was a huge cultural shift for that country as to what to do with all the children that had ended up in orphanages there. And so there are little relief nurseries throughout Ukraine now.
Well, I hope that relief keeps spreading, right?
Yeah.
I hope we can continue to support you in doing that. Well, it's been about 35 minutes now. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I also know there's only so much people want to spend with us. Yeah. Time flies, and I could be talking to you all night long. But at the end of the day, I just want to thank you for being here. And as much as I'm always telling our community who we're donating to and what we're trying to do with our donations and the good that it does, there's no better person to talk about it than the people actually doing the work. So I want to thank you for being here and introducing you. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we kind of sign off here?
I would just like to say thank you to everyone. Thank you to you, John. And we hope Go Imagine is wildly successful. And we're very grateful to be associated and collaborating with you. And we hope to meet the makers.
Yes.
You will. There's a lot of makers in Oregon. We have makers in every state every state throughout the country right now, and we have some fun ideas we're working on. I talked to Jennifer about doing things in person. Yes. At the end of the day, we're only a year into this. We are still wet behind the ears, a baby, but we're growing every day. And the most powerful thing we have that is growing is our community of makers that realize we as a community of makers can work together to help children that need us. And I say that to our community all the time. And you experience in your world as well, that when people rally around a good cause together, great things can happen. And we have a budding community on our end right now. And the more makers that join us, the more help we can give organizations like you and other ones throughout the country. So thank you for your time. I hope in the future you come back and talk to me again. And I will see you, I guess, on the internet.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.